Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Real Clear Politics Takeaway for Thursday, May 27th. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of RCP.
And I'm Carl Cannon, Washington Bureau Chief.
How you doing, Carl?
Good, Tom. There was another mass shooting in San Jose, California, where I used to live. When are we going to get a handle on that? I can't tell you.
And the details of that, Carl, are sort of the usual. His ex-girlfriend came out and said he was not mentally stable. That he was maybe bipolar and prone to sort of violent mood swings that were alcohol fueled. And again, 9 people as of right now have lost their lives. It's another terrible day for America.
Well, yeah. And, Joe Biden was vice president when we had a spate of these, and Barack Obama gave all these evocative speeches. At some point, he just stopped, he kind of threw up his hands. What is a president supposed to do? I don't know. But anybody who's looked at this issue knows that we have to have a holistic approach that, doesn't just, put politicians in their narrow lanes where they repeat things they've said about guns previously and other issues. We need a whole approach. And mental health, to me, has to be at the center of it. Yeah,
I agree. Some other news out of Washington yesterday, Carl. Joe Biden has ordered his intelligence services to conduct an examination or a re-examination maybe of the origins of the coronavirus. And this follows a whole series of articles, many of which we've run on Real Clear Politics, suggesting that the lab leak theory, the idea that the coronavirus leaked from the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which was initially dismissed, derided. Folks who said it were censored and ridiculed. Has now been seen to be a real possibility. And obviously, it's a big deal. We need to, at some point, understand how this happened, why this happened, to prevent it from happening again. But it looks like the lab leak theory is now back on the table as a real possible explanation, Carl.
Well, Tom, you and I spoke about this during the first year of the pandemic. It always seemed the most likely explanation. And to even mention it, you would be branded a racist. It was strange. And it was, to me, a systemic failure of the media, because, as you said, people were censored. They were attacked for saying this. You couldn't, if you used the word Wuhan, you were somehow, a white supremacist. It was a bizarre chapter in American journalism. And really, a lot of the Democrats fell in line with that. It was because Donald Trump was president. The country collectively lost its mind over that, pro and con. But to me, the media failure to not be more intellectually curious, not pursue what was the most likely explanation, is a chapter in journalism that I hope we never have to revisit.
But we will.
Probably tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. You know it. I know it. Everybody who's watching this knows it. Because the media has, I think, once again, demonstrated that it is willing to put its sort of partisan bias or its preferred narrative ahead of the facts or in place of the facts, instead of letting the facts lead them where the story goes. Tom, and not closing off possibilities because a certain politician of a certain party said something, and therefore it has to be rebuked and rebutted and denied.
Tom, you're absolutely right. This would be a case that, if it turns out to have been what would be a tragic and horrific industrial accident, really, there's a couple of storylines there. One is China's repeated lies about it, official lies told at the highest levels over and over and over again. That's something that the world community needs to digest and deal with. And the second one is just a case study of journalism. We're supposed to, go where the facts go, as you said, and showing neither fear nor favor, to use the old term. And it shows you why hyperpartisanship is a toxin of its own. It's its own kind of pandemic and its own kind of toxic thing. And it's dangerous to us as well as a microbe.
Do you think, though, Carl, we will ever get to the bottom of what happened? If China's not willing to share the data, and it certainly seems like they have not been willing to, how are we ever going to know what really happened in Wuhan, whether it was a lab leak? I mean, we can only make guesstimates, and so I suspect we'll never get to the bottom of this thing. What do you think?
Well, I don't know, but I think we have to. The world community needs to reevaluate China's influence on the World Health Organization. And if you think about it, Tom, when scientists started being skeptical about this official explanation was when China stonewalled in the recent thing, said they were going to be transparent. The World Health Organization went in, and the scientists who came out of there just a couple months ago said, well, they didn't really cooperate. And look, just because you're covering up doesn't mean you're guilty. I mean, China, the officials in China, they're so unused to open discourse, they may not know either, and they may just be covering up reflexively. Their stonewalling isn't proof that it came out of that lab.
That's an interesting theory. Just because you're covering up doesn't mean you're guilty.
Well, Tom, do you remember Gary Condit? He was a congressman from California, and he basically interfered with a criminal investigation into a woman's murder, a woman who used to work in his office. It turned out he had nothing to do with that, but he was having an affair with her. So you can be covering up one thing and be accused of another. Right. It's actually commonplace in law enforcement. So I still have an open mind about this in terms of whether we'll ever know. That's a scientific mystery that I hope gets unraveled.
All right, one last subject, Carl. There was a report out by the New York Post and also by the Daily Mail that they seem to have uncovered some new emails from Hunter Biden's laptop that effectively suggest and or confirm that there was a dinner that took place in Washington that did include Joe Biden himself, along with a number of Hunter Biden's business associates, including a representative from Burisma and some other folks to which Hunter Biden was connected in various ways, including financially. This is again, talk about a media story, Carl, and one that was ignored / suppressed / labeled Russian disinformation before the election. And now we have yet more information coming out that suggests, well, actually, the story may be very much true, and that Biden may have in fact lied about it.
I can't believe you're repeating Kremlin disinformation on this podcast, Tom. Right. Are you a Russian double agent? Come on, man.
Come on, man. No, but Carl, it's yet another example of, again, the media sort of putting its thumb on the scale, if you will, and not being curious. I mean, Glenn Greenwald gave a great, he was on a podcast earlier and talked about how, look, this is how he had made his career, right? Analyzing these treasure troves of information, whether it's WikiLeaks or the Snowden stuff. And again, this is what journalists, this is like why you do journalism, to try and get in there and connect the dots and reveal, things about people in power. And yet there was no curiosity from the media, most of the media, and the curiosity that existed on the part of the New York Post, who initially broke the story. Again, they were censored by social media. And so to me, it's another failure of sort of the media industrial complex, if you will, and this inability to follow the facts where they may lead, even if that happens to be, uncomfortable for someone that you may align yourself with, philosophically, ideologically, or politically.
Well, this is even, I just used the phrase case study. This is even a better case study because, yes, that Hunter Biden, the Hunter Biden laptop thing would have been, imagine if it was Donald Trump Jr., I mean, or anybody, or Ronald Reagan's kid, or anybody like that. Our whole instinct as journalists, I came of age when Watergate was, the journalism skills, schools of journalism were overflowing with new, crusading journalists who wanted to find the facts. What did the president know, and when did the president know it? But when this thing broke late in the game in the 2020 campaign, reporters and editors it was pretty obvious they thought this could hurt Biden and help Trump, and we want no part of it. And that's just, I understand the instinct, but that's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to not take sides. And this maybe is even a better case, textbook case of what happens when you don't follow the facts, when you don't follow the money, to use the Watergate movie phrase, and you start to try and put your thumb on the scale, because then you're not really a journalist, you're an advocate. And that's not what I signed up to do.
Yeah, me either. All right, we'll leave it there. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of RCP.
And I'm Carl Cannon, Washington Bureau Chief, and this has been the Real Clear Politics Takeaway for Thursday, May 27th. Join us tomorrow when we have our Friday session, which is not without camera. You won't have to look at Tom's face or mine, which I think makes for an easier conversation. Till then, it's been Real Clear Politics.